Hi, my name is Lindsay Chisholm-Carter, and I'll be your moderator for today's virtual debate. There are 3 Republican candidates in the 2nd Congressional District of New Mexico, which is also called CD2, in this year's primary election. 2 of those candidates are joining us today to participate in a virtual debate. Clarie Chase has declined to participate, but Yvette Herrell and Chris Mathys are with us in this virtual format. The debate will begin with an opening statement that will last approximately 3 minutes long from each candidate. At that time, we will then go into a series of questions which have been prepared. Each question will be addressed to a candidate, and they will have 2 minutes to answer that question. Then we'll address the other candidate for a rebuttal, which will be a minute in length. We'll then return back to the initial person who was asked the question, and they then also have a minute to have a rebuttal as well. Then we will go down the list of questions to each candidate, addressing each one at each time. Finally, there will be a closing statement that will last 3 minutes that each candidate will have an option to also address you with. When we begin, we need to start with those opening statements. So if you will now help me in welcoming Chris Mathys. We already mentioned your name, sir, but if you'll begin with your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much. Let me start out with thanking the wonderful ladies of Lee County. You work so hard, and it's such a pleasure to be a participant today. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I had the honor of serving in the United States Army. I followed my brother, my father, great-grandfather, and grandpa. It was such a pleasure to serve, and I think it's so important here in America that we never forget our veterans. From there, it was time for me to go to college. I went a 4-year degree at Fresno State. I got a degree there, and then I started working for Wells Fargo Bank, and I got into the loan business. I've been doing that 3 years. I am self-employed. I have 6 employees. And I'm proud to say I've never missed a payroll other than my own. And I think it's so important that all of those in government have private sector experience and realize that money does not grow on trees, and we definitely need to work within a budget. A few things are very important to me. Let me start out with our Constitution. It's so important that we protect our constitutional rights. Our Second Amendment is dear to me. Having grown up in a ranch, it's so important that we never take our right to keep and bear arms from American citizens. It is a symbol of freedom, and it protects us from a tyrannical government. Another very important thing to me is life. I have a 29-year-old son, and I'm so proud of him. And it's so important to me that we never forget life starts at conception. And finally, we have a great country, and I want to make sure that my son and my grandkids, don't have any yet, but hopefully I get some someday, live in a free country. So let's never, ever become a socialist country. Let's support our president, make sure America continues to stay free, and then we open our economy back up and let our young people get back to work and let our economy thrive again. Thank you again for letting me participate today.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate that. Now, Yvette Herrell, you have your 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Well, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I, like Chris, want to thank you for putting this on, because we're living in a different world now. And so to make that voter contact, it's critical that we use every avenue available to us. So I appreciate that you've set this format up for us today. But I'm Yevette Herrell. I reside in Alamogordo. I'm delighted to tell you that I was a state representative for 4 terms, which is 8 years. I don't think that makes me a political insider. It makes me somebody who can bring to the table the necessary experience. I have a very profound understanding of our district, our industries, our people, our culture, and have subsequently developed relationships with not only the people of New Mexico, but also in Washington, D.C. I was blessed to be able to sit on some of the transition teams when President Trump was elected. And so this has given me an opportunity to build those relationships with Congressman Jordan, Congressman Meadows, and others. But what's exciting about this race is that we do need somebody with the experience and the ability to build relationships. I'm blessed because I've been able to be not only a business owner, but worked for businesses. So I'm a job creator. I know what it's like to sign both sides of the paycheck. I understand the regulations and the issues that are facing our small business owners. And right now, we've got to do more than ever to protect the small businesses in New Mexico and, quite frankly, around the country. I am unashamedly pro-God, pro-life, pro-gun, pro-family, and pro-business. I have a proven voting record for those values, and in fact was named most conservative legislature in the House with a 91% conservative voting record. and you know, the opportunity to serve the people of New Mexico, it's really quite something, because you realize the responsibilities that are on your shoulders. You're actually making decisions that will affect everybody's life. So it's important that we have somebody who understands what is happening, and to be endorsed by, like I mentioned, Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Mike Huckabee, Susan B. Anthony, because of my pro-life stance, Gun Owners of America, because of my Second Amendment stance. These are people that are standing with me shoulder to shoulder because they believe in my ability to do this job and do it right. And I look forward to serving New Mexicans. I want to thank all of our veterans for their sacrifice to our nation. And as we move forward over the next number of weeks and months and get through this corona pandemic, I just continually ask for your prayers for our president, our nation, our leaders, and I would ask for your support and your prayers as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. We are going to now move on to the questions. Chris, you are going to receive the first question, and then Yvette will have the opportunity to do a rebuttal, and then you, sir, will come back to you to have a rebuttal as well. President Trump has been actively engaging in the correction of previous Chinese trade agreements. Do you agree with his policies, and why?
Yes. First of all, I want to make sure that everyone knows that I've been supporting our president back since the 80s when he wrote The Art of the Deal. We are so blessed to have a good, solid leader as the President of the United States of America. And frankly, our president is 100% correct. The Chinese have not worked and negotiated in the best interest of American citizens. He is so right to make sure that all of the agreements that have been entered into in the past are renegotiated and start favoring more Americans. I cringe when I see the Chinese dump a particular product and sell it at a price that's far below the cost to hurt our manufacturers. It's so important that we do everything we can to start bringing jobs back to American soil. Particularly concerning to me is this whole pandemic. The Chinese have not been straight with us on how it started, how it spread. And to me, it is so ironic that American citizens are now suffering from a pandemic that was imported from China. The bottom line is it's time we put our citizens first, and we make sure that people that come here in America come here legally and come here to work hard and not bring their problems to us. We don't need to be changed. We are a great nation. And if you come here to love America and to assimilate.
Thank you, Chris. Yvette, you now have 1 minute for rebuttal to that question.
No, I agree with Chris. I mean, finally, we have an administration who has put America back in the leadership role that we should always have been in through this administration. The trade agreements are very important to America, to New Mexico as well. And I think this pandemic has been a real eye-opener for everyone, because I see at the end of this, we are going to see manufacturing jobs brought back to America, especially in the areas of pharmaceuticals, pesticides, things that we need and use on a daily basis, but that we are emboldened to China to get. So I think the leadership agreements, the negotiations, trade deals have been very effective, and I'm very proud of this administration for placing us globally. And now the rest of the world takes this administration and our nation seriously.
Thank you, Yvette. Chris, you have the opportunity for another minute of a rebuttal as well.
Yeah, I'll make it real quick. What's particularly troubling to me is the amount of illegal drugs. Many of them have been sourced from China that come to America and then hurt our citizens, not only our young people, but our seniors. It's time that we hold China accountable. And if they want to use the United States as a place to sell their products, they're going to start doing it under our terms. And as far as I'm concerned, I support the president 100% in bringing back jobs to our great land here in America to put our young people at work.
Thank you. Yvette, this will be directed to you first. With the COVID virus and other factors affecting jobs, what industries would you look to as being job creators for New Mexico, and why?
Well, that's a great question, and we're living in such a different world now, but really at the end of the day, because of the diversity in New Mexico, we have to look at all of the jobs and all the availability, but certainly we have to put a focus on our ag industries and certainly the energy sector. We have to do what we can to bring the table a seat to the table by our small business owners. What I mean by that is here we are facing all of these challenges, but the business owners did not have an opportunity to decide whether or not they could remain open safely, or if they can continue to open their doors, put the guidelines in effect. I mean, first and foremost, we've got to protect all of the residents, but we have to really look to our energy sector and our ag sector, because those are the two big main feeds to our general revenue fund, and especially the energy. That's what feeds New Mexico. But we need to do what we can to start seeing how we can infuse more energy, more people, and more resources into those two sectors for sure. But how we do it in oil and gas is to get America open again. I mean, we know what the reserves look like right now. We've seen the bust in the market. Thank God for President Trump, the negotiations with OPEC and with the negotiations in terms of the word I'm looking for, you know, they're going to stop producing so much oil from Russia and Saudi Arabia, and the softening of that will help our production. But really what's going to help our industries as a whole is to get America back to work so we can utilize some of the energy resources. But we also have the labs here. We have the opportunities to help bring a solution to the problem through the work at our national laboratories. But we really need to see our small businesses, our mom pop grocers, our landscapers, you know, some of these businesses. We've got to start moving the ball forward and giving them the opportunity to open their doors for business in a safe fashion so that we can start generating revenues back into our economy here in New Mexico.
Thank you, Yvette. Chris, you have the opportunity for a 1 minute rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. It's so important that we get our people here in New Mexico back to work. And what I particularly resent is how the governor handled this. I mean, for her to apply the same standards statewide to every county is ridiculous. Clearly, the caseloads are much lower here in southern New Mexico. And it is a travesty of what's going on now with our young people. You're in your 20s, you have a mortgage and a couple of kids, and now you've been off almost a month.
All right.
The bottom line is we got to get people back to work, particularly in the oil and gas industry. When people aren't working, people aren't spending money, oil is not being consumed like it should be, and guess what? The prices drop. Right now, the oil companies aren't making any money. They're having to lay off young people because the market's not there and there's a flood of oil in the market. Lee County is blessed with one of the best oil reserves in the world. Governor, and if you're listening to this video, and I hope you are, get us back to work and stop trying to control our lives.
Thank you, Chris. Yvette, you now have another minute for rebuttal as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just kind of following up, because I can see, you know, we're all pretty much on the same page, but, you know, we have a responsibility to the health, safety, and welfare of the American people, New Mexico and abroad, as far as around the nation. But really, we also have a responsibility to the economic health of our nation and of our state. And it is true, we have got to get people back to work. We have got to start jumpstarting this, because there's too many small businesses that will not last very much longer, and we cannot be reliant on the federal government. But we also need to take a hard look at what's really at stake. It's our Constitution, it's our freedoms, it's our liberties, and we need to be ready to stand up and speak up for our Constitution during this process.
Thank you very much. Chris, we're back to you for this question. What is your policy specifically on immigration, not border control or border security? Excuse me.
Thank you for asking that very important question. We're under siege right now in the United States. Estimates say that we spend over $30 billion a year on taking care of illegal aliens. That has to stop. If you come to America, you must come legally. You must come to learn English, to assimilate, and to salute our flag. I will strongly support several steps that are already in progress. One is that if someone wants to come to America, they need to seek asylum in a country other than America. Secondly, if someone comes to America with the intent of selling drugs and bringing drugs over, they need a minimum 20-year prison sentence and then be deported immediately and never ever come to America again. If an illegal alien is caught in America, that person is a felon, and needs to be deported. Also, we need to hold other countries accountable. Mexico has to control who's leaving their country and not just let hundreds and thousands of people cross their border into our country. Also, Guatemala needs to do the same thing. Finally, it's so important that we do not grant any benefits to illegal aliens. They are a public charge. They want to come to America, come the right way, come legally, and come here to work. Do not come to take our welfare and destroy our country.
Thank you, Chris. Yvette, you now have the opportunity for the rebuttal for a minute.
Right. I agree. I mean, we have laws on the books. If you want to come to our nation, then they need to come to our nation legally. If that means putting more judges on the bench so that we can go through the processing period a little quicker, that's great. I also think we need to look at our guest worker programs and ensure that we're bringing people into this nation to work as guest workers and do that very quickly. But we have got laws on the books. They've been codified. We need to stay and stand by the law that we already have. And we need to enforce that and help those who are on the border and help this administration do just that.
Thank you very much. Chris, you now have another rebuttal for a minute.
Yes, thank you. And that makes a lot of sense. That we had the Rebuttal program 20 years ago that was very effective. We knew who was coming in, where they would work, how long they would stay here, and when they would return. And that is, to me, the right way of handling it. That way, employers that need the extra labor can still count on the workforce, but we know who's here and we know what they're doing and we know when they're going to return. The worst possible thing is for someone to come here and then become a burden on the taxpayers of New Mexico.
Thank you. Yvette, we'll turn back to you for the next question.
Okay.
In 2 minutes. With many states legalizing marijuana, what is your stance on legalizing marijuana at the federal level?
I'm not in favor of that. We tried to do it as a state representative. That bill was brought before our committees a number of times. I'm not in favor of it. And the reason I'm not is because there are too many questions and not enough answers. One of the big questions I've always had was there are not any type of field sobriety tests developed right now for marijuana. So it's very difficult for our law enforcement to determine if somebody's under the influence. But what I want to know is, we don't know how it'll affect insurance premiums and policies for high risk, high liability companies such as physicians, heavy equipment operators. And I think that what we're trying to do is solve one problem and create 15 more. We've seen other states around the nation legalize recreational marijuana in a hope to get more revenues into their general funds, and it looks good from the surface, but then you look at what the damage it's cost, especially up in Colorado. We can look to the unemployment rates. We can look to the accidents they've had. We see the liability that it has caused. I'm not in favor of it. To me, it's a gateway to even more deliberate drug use. Our law enforcement and our courts are already under such stress dealing with the crimes that we see right now. So in my opinion, for me, I do not support legalizing recreational marijuana on the federal level.
Thank you very much. Chris, you have a minute.
Yes, I concur. Marijuana, it is considered a gateway drug. If you look at other states that have allowed the legalization of marijuana, crime rates are up, mental illness is up. And most important to me is we don't want our young people who already have the challenges that they have to get involved in yet another drug. It's very, what I would say, hazardous, harmful, not healthy. Also, to me, it's something that is not what I believe is something we should allow to be legal. I understand medicinal marijuana if you have a legitimate medical need and a legitimate prescription from a doctor, but to just let everyone consume it without restrictions, I'm completely against.
Thank you, sir. Yvette, another minute for you.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to the next question. And Chris, this will be yours to begin. Climate change continues to be an ongoing topic of discussion. What are your views on climate change and what kind of policies would you view as being beneficial to New Mexico?
Thank you. You have to look at the history of the world, and climate is always going to change. We're going to have cold times, we're going to have hot times. And to me, it's not an issue that is something that the government should start getting involved in and using it to create yet further restrictions. I believe that we have enough laws on the books. It's already hard enough for the oil and gas industry to survive with a governor that won't allow, or doesn't want them to be able to frack on public lands. Fines are going up, restrictions are going up. The land commissioner has also made it more difficult. The bottom line is it's going to get cold and it's going to get hot, but we don't need the government to tell us how to regulate our industries, especially industries related to oil and gas, and yet to further put another layer of burden on an already struggling industry where prices now are to the point where the oil companies can't even turn a profit.
Thank you very much. Yvette, you have a minute.
Yeah, climate change is really sometimes a topic that gets discussed, but I think what we're missing is in New Mexico and around the country in terms of energy, we have reduced our CO2, we have reduced emissions. We've done a very good job at limiting our footprint in terms of the energy production in this country. What we need to be helping with and pointing to are the best stewards of our land, which is our ag industries, our oil and gas industries. What we've got to fight against is the radicals in Washington, D.C., like AOC and the Green New Deal that will absolutely crush any of our industries that we are reliant on, any of the extractives. We can do this in a way that makes everybody happy, because there is not a person I've met that wants to see our water or our land or any of our natural resources damaged that cannot be used for future generations. So we've just got to get behind the best stewards of our lands and get the environmentalists and the progressives out of the way.
Thank you. And Chris, another rebuttal for you.
Yeah, and that's the irony behind it. AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, says she was actually happy that the oil and gas industry was losing money. What a disgrace to our nation. I'm sure that when she flies in a jet, it's not powered by a solar panel or a wind turbine. We need to make sure that our energy is diversified, broad scope, but not penalize oil and gas and then at the same time allow renewables to get tax subsidies. It's time to give oil and gas a fair playing field and not demand through this Green New Deal that our oil and gas industry is yet further regulated in what's already an overregulated industry.
Thank you very much. The next question, Yvette, will be yours.
Okay.
What actions do you believe need to be taken to get the oil and gas markets turned around, and how long do you think it'll take to correct?
Yeah, great question. And if I had the answers to that, I bet I could get really rich. But really, I think that's going to be something that's going to take time. I mean, we're living in a brand new America. I mean, over the last 6 weeks, there has been change and sometimes day-to-day change. One thing we know that's going to help is putting America back to work. Right now, there aren't very many people traveling to and from work. We see a huge a cut in the way we're doing air travel, and so many of the industries that utilize oil and gas. That, coupled with there is a lot of oil in reserve right now. So really the best way we can help our oil and gas industry, our energy industry, is to start opening America back up. And we see states around the nation that are starting to do that incrementally. Georgia has opened their doors for business. But it's going to take some time, and we're seeing the rebounds in terms of price per barrel jump up a little bit from where we were at the beginning of the week. Obviously, that's very helpful. It's going to take some time. I believe that this administration can get us to the finish line, but we have got to help ensure that we are putting people back to work all over the country so that we can start utilizing these reserves and start seeing more production out of the Permian Basin and other reserves around the nation.
Thank you very much. Chris, 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. It's clearly an issue of supply and demand. And when the demand goes down and the supply goes up, you're going to have a fluctuation in prices. I give our president a lot of credit for negotiating with the Russians and Saudi Arabia. But I think the real problem over the long run leads to excessive regulation. We had a chance to get a refinery down in Lee County. Guess where it's going now? Texas. Why? Because the business people in Texas said New Mexico is too difficult to deal with. There are too many regulations that make us hard to do business. The bottom line is we are blessed with one of the richest reserves in the United States. Let's let the oil and gas industry do their business and make sure they're not over-regulated, and make sure that the state, including the governor, doesn't put unnecessary restrictions on their ability to do that.
Thank you. Yvette, 1 minute.
Oh, no, I just say we get Americans working again, and we'll see the supply and demand even itself out. But we're all going through this same thing, and the nation as a whole is trying to figure out how we get America back on track. And so it's going to be a effort that everybody's going to have to play a part in. But the sooner we can get America working again, the sooner we can see those production levels going up.
Thank you. Chris, we'll direct this one to you first. When did you become a Trump supporter and why?
Well, thank you. It's a great question. I'm in the real estate business. I've been in it since I graduated from college. And I've known who Donald Trump is when I was in my early 20s. He wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. And that book, if you're in real estate and construction, it's a very good book. It teaches you basic negotiating skills. I read that book from the beginning to the end several times, and I told myself, this is a man that I would like to be. And I was so honored when he was talking about running for president, I believe back in 2014, but then didn't do it. And then I heard, I hope he gives it another shot. And sure enough, he got in the race. I was so happy. I supported Donald Trump from the very beginning when he was running against 9 other Republicans. He had my vote in the primary and in the general election, and he's going to have my vote again this election cycle. He's not a politician. He tells the media the way it's done, make sure that he puts us first, protects our borders, and he's the right man, and we need him in for another 4 years. I don't have to out-Trump my opponents and try to prove my Trump credentials. I've been there from the beginning. Vote Donald Trump and Chris Mathys in the next election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shameless plug.
Yvette, you have a minute.
I made Yvette laugh. I feel good.
No, and I mean, everybody knows that I've been a Trump supporter since day one. I mean, I came out and supported him. In fact, I was in the state legislature when he came on board, and we knew that it would be just such a great opportunity for the nation to have an outside businessman who understood the economy of our country and who understood business. And so for me, I mean, and everybody knows this, it's been since day one. I'm so proud of this president and thankful that he was the one elected, and really right now thankful that he's the one weathering the storm with Americans, because I think under his leadership we've just grown exponentially, and we understand what America can look like under this leadership, and I think there's a hunger for that, and that's why I believe he will win New Mexico in 2020, and we need to keep him elected.
Thank you. Another minute to you, Chris.
Reiterating again, I would hate to see where America would be at right now if Hillary Clinton had won the election. It's so important that we get Mr. Trump in the office again to serve another 4 years. He is the right captain to be on our ship. And what I really like about Mr. Trump too is his love for God, family, and country, and how he's been the most supportive president in a long time to protect our unborn children. He's the man we need. He has a wonderful family, and it would be an honor for me to serve under our president next year.
Thank you. All right, Yvette, this question goes to you first. How does the federal government recover its budget from the billions of dollars being handed out to assist the states in the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, even before the CARES Act and some of the other stimulus bills were passed, we already had a problem. We had $24 trillion worth of debt. I'm a huge advocate for a balanced budget amendment. I carried that legislation as a state representative to push and force the federal government to balance their budget. Every state in the nation except one has to live with a balanced budget. And I don't know of a family or business that doesn't live within their budgetary means and within their ability to run their families correctly and their businesses. So for me, it's about pushing the balanced budget, whether it's through the states carrying the resolutions or in the Constitution, Article 5, the Congress can actually call and do this change themselves and call for a balanced budget. But I was really blessed the other day. I was on a call with Vice President Pence and some others, legislators from around the country, and that came up, the balanced budget amendment and how we look to get ourselves back on track economically and through a means of our budgetary crisis. Balancing our federal budget is where we're going to have to really concentrate some time, especially Congress, because we cannot afford these stimulus packages over and over. And there is not enough quantitative easing to pay these bills, and to see the kind of debt we have. We're $5 trillion with deficit. We've got to take a hard look at balancing the federal budget. That is the first big step into getting us back on track and recovering some of these dollars that we've seen them pass in terms of the stimulus packages.
Thank you, Yvette. Chris, 1 minute.
Yes, the government continues to spend more and more money. We are more and more in debt. And now again, 2 large bonds, or should I say, basically relief packages have been approved. What does that mean? That means more debt. That means higher taxes. That means future debt. And the bottom line is, if we have to balance our own budgets, why shouldn't the government have to do that? I served as a Fresno City Councilman, and I was honored to be what they call the budget hawk. We need to go through the budget on a federal level, line item by line item, and stop what I believe is wasteful spending. More important, we need to start deporting illegal aliens. A big problem that we have on the federal level is that we are supporting 11 million illegal aliens, which is costing our nation over $30 billion every year. That money could be used to reduce the federal debt. We need to work within a budget, and we need a balanced budget as soon as possible.
Thank you. Yvette, 1 minute.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we'll move to our next question. And Chris, we will begin with you. What is your plan to win over moderate Democrats and independents, as we know they will be the key to helping win this race?
Well, I think it's very important that we get the message out. And the last election, I didn't believe that we were forceful enough. I strongly think even independents and what I call moderate Democrats, they want what we want. They want to be able to live in a country where you have to live here legally. They want to make sure that people that work come first, and that if you want to come here, you have to work. I also believe that most New Mexican families want to have the right to defend their families. Again, that didn't get out. Bottom line is, we have a Second Amendment that needs to be protected, and we need to make sure that we are the party as Republicans that are going to make sure that our freedoms are preserved. Finally, life. I also strongly believe most New Mexicans, regardless of their party affiliation, support protecting our unborn children. We need to make sure that people in New Mexico know that we are the party that will protect their families, give them the freedoms and liberties, and be the ones that make sure that their families can continue to work, and that there are jobs available, and that we have an economy that's not overregulated, that's not socialistic, and keeps the liberties that our forefathers and our mothers worked so hard over the last 200 years to be free. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvette, 1 minute.
Yeah, I think how we do it is relationships. Building relationships is really the key to the success of anybody in any type of government office. When you have relationships with people, it's very hard to make up or down votes that will have a profound effect on their business or their family or their community. I think when we build the relationships, which is something I've really worked hard at doing over the last many years, has been very helpful, because then you are more inclusive with what is happening in the decisions you're making, the commonalities. When we find the common thread, whether it's pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-business, then we have more to work with, more to talk about. And we need to stop letting the media drive the narrative. We need to get out to the voters, and so they can know who we are and who wants to represent them. And like I've said this a dozen times, it matters who's making the decisions for us. And I think over the course of the last several years under this administration, even the liberals and progressives and the moderate Democrats have seen how good this president is. So it's about relationship building and finding the commonality.
Thank you. Chris, another minute for you, sir.
Right, and I think the most important thing is, and I know Yvette and I differ on this issue, is we need to debate. The televised debates were not attended in the last go-around. Tora Small had the whole thing to herself. I can promise the people here in New Mexico that I will be a strong proponent of our values and make sure that people know the difference between Chris Mathys and the Republican Party and Tora Small. Do we really want someone that voted to remove our president and spend $60 million on an impeachment trial when that money could have been used to help New Mexicans? Do we really want someone that thinks illegal aliens should vote? I can promise you that message will get out loud and clear, and I am looking forward to debate Tora Small on television so the people of New Mexico can see the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the questions we have for today's debate. We do now have the opportunity for you each to make a closing statement. You have 3 minutes to do that. Yvette, we'll begin with you. You have your 3 minutes now.
Okay, well, again, I just want to thank all of you for doing this and giving us the opportunity to reach voters because, again, we're living in a different world than we were just a month ago. So putting this format together is very helpful for all of us. I'm very excited about the opportunity to represent District 2 in Washington, D.C. I think that this is something that we have got to take serious. I'm approaching this like a job interview, and I know when you go to hire people in your businesses, you look for people with experience who know the job, who understand how the job works, and who have the relationships in place. I am the person who can hit the ground running because of the relationships. You know, I know that my friends in Congress are like-minded, so I don't have to go and find out who I can trust. I already know Congressman Jordan, Debbie Lesko, a number of others. That's important right now because the stakes are high and we need somebody who can go straight to DC and start being the voice of the people of New Mexico. Sochi Small ran as a moderate Democrat. She's anything but. Her voting record tells the story. When she voted for impeachment of President Trump, I think that went really against the grain of most people in New Mexico because President Trump has a 90% approval rating here. We know that this president is important, but we also know that this nation and the future of this nation is at stake. We must hold the House or hold the Senate, take the House, and keep this president elected. But for me, it's about relationships with people. It's about understanding now. I've got a proven track record. I am a solid conservative. People know I am pro-God, pro-life, pro-gun, pro-business. But it's also because I've spent a lot of time building relationships with the district. And people understand I am a person of my word, I'm a person of character, and my integrity speaks for itself. I've never compromised myself or my positions to please anybody because for me, it's people over politics always. And so I'm just blessed and feel really honored to be in a position, and I appreciate the support and the prayers, and we just need to keep praying about this nation and so forth. But I really think and believe in my heart that I'm the right person for this job. My colleagues and my endorsements have stood by me again, and that speaks something. That speaks to my true character and my ability to do this job, and I'm ready for it. I'm excited about it. We've worked very hard for it. New Mexico deserves somebody who will put their voice first, put the 2nd Congressional District back on the map, and take care of the people at home. So again, thank you for doing this, and I appreciate the time. And I'm Yvette Herrell, and I hope you'll vote for me.
Thank you, ma'am. Chris, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the fine women in Lee County for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work, and I know it's not easy, and I really appreciate that. I also want to let you know it's been such a pleasure to visit Lee County the many times that I have. I am proud to be a graduate of the University of the Southwest in Hobbs, and I have a special love for Lee County. What I would like to offer you is a strong leader. Let me start out with having served in the armed forces. I know what great country America is. I know how important it is that we protect our sovereignty, that we make sure that we protect our borders, and that American citizens come first. What I particularly am concerned with is there in Las Cruces, you'll see a veteran on a street corner begging for some money to be able to eat, but then we'll provide a young family from Central America that's not here legally with a house, with free health care, free medical. It's just wrong. It's time we put our people first, the American people. As far as experience, I've been in business 30 years. I've managed a payroll for 30 years. I've never missed a payroll other than my own. And being in business for that long, you have to have the ability to get along with people. If you don't, your business will not survive. I have had the honor of visiting every county in New Mexico that's in the district. I was able to get almost 4,000 signatures that nominated me to be your congressman. And I'm so proud and so thankful to get those signatures. And I believe that with your help and with your vote, we can get the 2nd District back in Republican hands, work with our president, get America working again, and continue to live in this wonderful free country. I have a 29-year-old son, and I want him to enjoy the same freedoms that the rest of us grew up with. and be able to live in America proudly, be in a country where people still respect us, where they, in fact, stand for our flag, kneel for our cross. And we can never do this without the love for God, family, and country. And I will be honored to represent you, and I would be honored for your consideration when you vote June 2nd for the 2nd Congressional District. My name is Chris Mathys, and thank you again for allowing me to speak to you today.
Thank you, Chris. And on behalf of the Lee County Republican women, I'd like to thank you both, Yvette Herrell and Chris Mathys, for participating in today's virtual debate. It is definitely a sign of the times, and we thank you both for joining us and being part of this and helping to get the word out. The most important end word that we would like to share with you is do go and vote. Whatever means is available, make sure you're aware of what the means available is, and if it, regardless, make sure that you get your voice heard and go out and vote for this primary election. On behalf of the Lee County Women's Network, Lee County Republican, and please, thank you. We thank you for joining us and hope that you have a great day.